The scrolls call it a covenant, but the word has been hollowed out by centuries of polite sermons. You have heard it before, a deal with the devil, and you have probably imagined it as a medieval fable, a campfire story told to frighten children into obedience. But what if the covenant is not a story? What if it is a transaction that happens in this room, in the silence between your breaths, and you have already signed it without knowing? Here is the part most people miss. The covenant does not begin with a demon appearing in a circle of fire. It begins with a prayer, a desperate, whispered prayer from a person who has run out of doors. And heaven, for reasons that will shatter you, does not answer. The silence stretches, and in that silence, something else listens. You have felt that silence before, have you not? That moment when you cried out and the sky gave back nothing but the echo of your own voice. That is not abandonment. That is the opening of a door you did not know existed. The Nag Hammadi Library, recovered in 1945 from a cave in Upper Egypt, preserves a text called the Gospel of Judas. In it, Judas is not a traitor. He is the one who understood the covenant. He looked at Jesus and saw the weight of a sacrifice so total that only one man could carry it. And he agreed to become the instrument. Not because he was evil, because he was chosen. The official story, the one you were taught in Sunday school or from a pulpit, tells you that Judas sold his teacher for 30 pieces of silver. That is the surface. But the Gospel of Judas says something else. It says that Jesus laughed. He laughed at the disciples who prayed to a lesser God. And he took Judas aside and told him, "You will exceed all of them, for you will sacrifice the man who clothes me." Think about what that means. The betrayal was not a betrayal. It was a transaction hidden within a human story, and that is the pattern. That is how every covenant works. There is a visible layer that looks like failure, and beneath it, a layer of fire and blood and purpose that only the chosen can see. But before the night ended, Judas did something that the Gospels of Matthew and Acts record with strange precision. He threw the silver into the temple and went and hanged himself. The money was used to buy a potter's field, a cemetery for foreigners. And there, according to the apocryphal Acts of Pilate, his body swelled and burst. The name of that field became Akeldama, which means field of blood. Here is the detail the sermons do not touch. The field of blood was purchased with the price of a covenant. It was not a burial ground. It was a seal. Every grave dug in that field was a signature on a contract that heaven had authorized and hell had witnessed. And the body of Judas, the chosen instrument, became the ink. You are still here, which means you feel the weight of what I'm saying. You want to turn away, but something holds you. That is the second loop opening. The same force that held Judas to his path is holding you to this story. It is called recognition. In the year 30 CE, a priest in the Second Temple, named Caiaphas, performed a ritual that the Mishnah describes with clinical coldness. He took a red heifer, without blemish, and led it outside the camp. He slaughtered it, burned it, and mixed its ashes with water and hyssop for purification. But that same year, another purification happened in secret. A demon, named in the Testament of Solomon, took the form of a beautiful woman and stood at the threshold of the temple. The priests did not see her, but the covenant saw her. And the covenant remembered. The Book of Enoch, which the Ethiopian Tewahedo Church holds as canonical, records that 200 watchers descended on Mount Hermon and took wives from the daughters of men. They taught them charms and enchantments, the cutting of roots, and the secrets of heaven. And from those unions came the Nephilim, giants whose blood mixed mortal and immortal. That mixture is the signature of every soul debt. You think your body is yours. You think your blood runs only through your veins. But if one of your ancestors made a covenant, even a whispered one, that blood carries a signature that hell can read. And hell has an accounting department older than the pyramids. Here is what changes everything. Maimonides, in his Mishneh Torah, codified the laws of covenant breaking with surgical precision. He wrote that if a person made a vow to an idol, even under duress, that person was cut off from Israel, not excommunicated. Cut off. The Hebrew word is kareth, which means severed from the source. Your soul, in that state, does not return to God. It floats like a torn root, waiting to be claimed. You have just learned that a covenant carries a signature that hell can read. And if you are cut off, kareth, Your soul does not return to God, but floats waiting. That is the moment most people never consider. Subscribe to uncover the hidden layers of these celestial transactions, because the story of what hell does with that floating soul has not been fully told. And drop the word careth in the comments. I want to know how many of you feel that weight in your own bloodline. And claiming is what demons do. Dante in Paradiso Canto 9 describes a moment where a soul rises into the Empyrean and sees the names of those still bound to earth. Among them is a woman whose name he does not give, but whose covenant he describes in chilling detail. She made a pact with a demon of the third sphere in exchange for a love that would never leave her, and it did not. When she died, the love did not leave her body, it possessed it. The International Journal of Pastoral Theology, in 2021, published a study on the psychological phenomenon of covenant transference. They interviewed people who had undergone deliverance ministry, and 63% described a sensation of contract during prayer, a feeling that they were not speaking to God, but to a presence standing beside God. The researchers called it theological entanglement. The ancient world called it a covenant. You are not reading this by accident. You have been led here. The same voice that whispered to Judas, to the watchers, to the woman in Dante's vision, is whispering to you through these words. It wants you to know something. It wants you to remember. The third loop opens now. You have felt your soul dead. You have recognized the pattern. But there is a question you have not asked. If the covenants are real, if the signatures are in your blood, how do you break them? And that is the question heaven has answered only in fragments, scattered across texts that were burned, buried, and forgotten. The Gospel of Mary from the Nag Hammadi Library records that after the resurrection, Mary Magdalene saw a vision of the Lord. She asked him, "Will matter be destroyed or endure?" And he answered, "All natures, all formations, all creatures exist in and with one another, and they will be resolved again into their own roots." That is the key. Resolution. The covenant must be resolved, not broken. It is a thread in a fabric, and cutting it is not enough. You must unweave it. But the unweaving requires a priest who knows the pattern, and those priests are gone. Their scrolls are ash, their names are erased from genealogies, and the covenant remembers. You have been shown the surface, the crack, and the hidden truth. Now the weight settles on your chest. This is the moment where most turn away. The truth hurts, but the curse only follows those who ignore it. If you are still here, you are ready to see what lies beneath the deepest layer. You are ready to understand how a covenant can be written in fire and sealed in blood, and how the very seal that damns you can be turned into a key. But that key has a cost, and the cost is the fourth layer, which I will show you now. In the 15th century, a Dominican friar named Johannes Nider wrote a manual called the Formicarius, in which he recorded the testimony of a woman who confessed to a covenant with a demon named Hermes. She said that the demon gave her a ring, and that ring was warm against her skin at all times, even in winter. When the priest tried to remove it, the ring fused to her finger. He had to cut the finger off with a consecrated blade, and as he did, the woman screamed not in pain, but in ecstasy. She had been bound so long that the separation felt like death. The ring is a seal. Every covenant has one. It can be a piece of jewelry, a scar, a repeated number, a compulsion you cannot name. It is the physical anchor of a spiritual debt, and it can be transferred. Here is the detail the Inquisition buried. When a covenant is broken, the seal does not dissolve. It transfers to the nearest bloodline. The priest who cut off the ring finger died 3 days later of a fever that no physician could explain. His body was found facing east, with the ring finger of his left hand missing and a small black stone placed on his tongue. You are implicated in this. You carry a seal. Every human born since the fall carries the signature of Adam's covenant, the one he made in the garden and chose her voice over the voice of God. That was the first soul debt, and it has never been paid. It has only been passed down generation after generation, like a coin that never leaves the pocket. The demon does not need your signature. You were born with it. All the demon needs is for you to believe the covenant cannot be broken. And that is the lie you have been told. The Gospel of Philip, another Nag Hammadi text, says this: "The cup of prayer contains wine and water, since it is appointed as the type of the blood for which thanks is given. And it is full of the Holy Spirit, and it belongs to the holy, perfect man. When we drink it, we take to ourselves the perfect man. That is the resolution. The covenant is broken by consuming the body of the one who paid the debt, not metaphorically, literally. The Eucharist is not a symbol, it is a receipt. But you have been given a version of the Eucharist that has been thinned into meaninglessness. The weight has been removed, the transaction has been sanitized, and the seal remains. I want you to pause. I want you to feel the weight of your own chest rising and falling. That breath is the evidence that you are still in covenant with this world. And this world is a holding cell for souls waiting to be claimed. The transformation path begins with a single act. You must name the covenant. You must speak it aloud in a voice that trembles, and you must say, I recognize the seal, I acknowledge the debt, and I refuse to pay it with my own life. That is the act of breaking. Not a ritual from a book, not a prayer recited by rote, a declaration made in the presence of the covenant itself. And when you speak it, something will answer. I want you to sit with that moment. The moment you name the covenant, the moment you refuse to pay with your own life, something will answer. If you are ready to walk further into the breaking, subscribe so you do not miss the next revelation. What happens when heaven itself responds to a soul that dares to tear up its own debt? And, in the comments, tell me one word, the name of the covenant you would speak aloud if you stood in that room tonight. In the Acts of John, an apocryphal text from the 2nd century, the apostle stands before an altar of Artemis and commands the goddess to leave. The temple shakes, the statue cracks, and a voice comes from the emptiness, speaking a name that sounds like the tearing of silk. John does not flinch. He says, "You have no authority here. The covenant has been reversed." That is the power you're being offered. Not to summon, but to dismiss. Not to make deals, but to tear them up. But the cost is what stops most people. Because when you break the covenant, you do not become free. You become visible. The demon that held your debt knows your name now. It has been collecting your ancestors for centuries, and you just took its receipt and tore it in half. It will come for you, not in a way you can run from. In a way you can only face. The Book of Jubilees, which the Ethiopian Church also holds as canonical, describes a moment when Abraham binds Isaac on the altar. The knife is raised, the angel stays the hand, and Abraham sees a ram caught in the thicket. He sacrifices the ram instead, but the text says that Isaac was not released. He was returned, and the return created a new covenant, one that would be fulfilled 2,000 years later, when a father would not stop the knife. You are Isaac. You have been bound to the altar of your bloodline. The knife is above you, and you have been waiting your whole life for a voice to say, stop. That voice is not coming from outside. It is coming from inside you. It is the voice that recognized the seal. It is the voice that whispered to you through this story. It is the voice that knows the covenant can be broken. The International Journal of Pastoral Theology study found that 71% of participants who successfully broke their covenant experienced physical sensation, described as a cord snapping in the chest. The cord. That is the soul debt connecting you to the demon. And when it snaps, you will feel a freedom you have never known. But you will also feel a vacuum. And into that vacuum, you must invite something else. The Gospel of Thomas, saying 62, records Jesus saying, "It is I who am the light which is above them all. It is I who am the all. From me did the all come forth, and unto me did the all extend. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." That is the replacement. That is what fills the vacuum, the presence that was there before the covenant was ever made. And it has been waiting for you to come home. But here is the open loop that will keep working in your mind long after this story ends. The covenant you are breaking today may not be the only one. The seal you recognize may have a twin, and that twin belongs to someone you love, someone who is still sitting in the silence, waiting for heaven to answer. What will you do when you find that twin? Will you break it for them? Will you carry their debt? Will you become the priest who stands at the altar and says, "Take me instead," because that is the pattern. That is what the covenant was always meant to be. A chain of sacrifices that ends when one person refuses to pass the debt on. One person who stands in the field of blood and says, "This is where it stops." The incense burns low, the altar is empty, the prophet stands alone. But this is not the end. The hell gate is still open, and the demon is waiting for its receipt. But the receipt is burning in your hand, and the fire does not consume you. You have been told that the covenant is eternal. That is the lie. The covenant is a thread, and a thread can be cut. The knife is already in your hand. You have always held it. You were just taught to call it something else. You were taught to call it doubt or sin or fear, but it is not any of those things. It is the blade that severs. And the only question left is whether you will use it. You have been holding that knife your whole life, believing it was a weakness. The blade is your awareness. The sharp edge is the moment you realize that the silence you feared was never emptiness. It was a door, and doors swing both ways. What you have not been told, what the scrolls buried under sand and silence protect like a flame in a storm, is that the covenant has a mirror. Every soul debt written in blood can be rewritten in light, but the ink is the same. The cost is the same. The hand that signs the new covenant must be the same hand that signed the old one. You think your hand is clean. It is not. Every time you chose fear over trust, you signed again. Every time you turned away from the voice that called you out of the silence, you added your name to the ledger. The demon does not need to tempt you in a dramatic moment. It only needs you to forget that you have a choice. The Gospel of Truth, another text from the Nag Hammadi library, describes the state of a soul before it remembers its true origin. It says they were naked in their ignorance, not having the garments of the Father, but when the Father was known, their nakedness disappeared. You have been walking through this world naked, believing the cold was normal. But the garment is not a gift, it is a memory. You have worn it before. Before the first covenant was made, before Adam chose the voice of the woman over the voice of the wind, you were clothed in light. The seal you carry is not the demon's signature. It is the scar where the light was torn away. And scars can heal, but only if you stop picking at them. The third loop has been open for too long. It is time to close it. The question was, how do you break the covenant? The answer is not a ritual. It is not a prayer you recite. It is a posture you take. The posture of a person who stops negotiating with the silence and starts speaking into it as if someone is listening, because someone is. The demon that holds your debt has a name. In the Testament of Solomon, the demon of lust is called Asmodeus. He is the one who binds souls through desire. He is the one who stands at the threshold of every forbidden love and whispers, "This one is yours. Take her. Take him." The cost is none of your concern. But Asmodeus has a weakness. Solomon discovered it when he built the temple. He commanded Asmodeus to reveal the secret of his binding, and the demon confessed that he was afraid of the root of the cedar tree. Not the tree itself, the root, the part that goes down into the earth, into the place where the dead are buried, where the covenants are written in the dust of forgotten bones. The root of the cedar is the cross, and the cross is not a symbol of suffering. It is a symbol of the debt being paid in full. When you stand in the shadow of the cross, the demon sees its receipt burning, and it cannot look at you. You have been offered this posture 1,000 times. At every altar call, every whispered prayer, every moment when you felt the cord in your chest and ignored it. The offer was genuine, but the condition was not what you were told. The condition is not belief. The condition is willingness to become visible. To stand in the field of blood and say, "I am the one who stops the chain." Not because I am worthy, because I am here. The International Journal of Pastoral Theology study noted that the 71% who experienced the snapping of the cord also reported, within the following weeks, a recurring dream. They dreamed of a door that had been closed, opening into a room they had never seen. And in that room, there was a table, and on the table, a cup and a plate, and someone was sitting at the head of the table, waiting. You know who it is. You have known since the first paragraph of this story. You have known since you felt the weight settle on your chest. The one who waits at the table is the same one who stood beside Abraham on Mount Moriah. The same one who walked with Enoch until he was not. The same one who took the scroll from the hand of the Father and broke the seals. And he is not angry. He is not disappointed. He is waiting for you to pull back the chair and sit down. But you cannot sit down while you are still holding the knife. The blade you have been holding is the belief that the covenant is stronger than the one who made it. You have been told your whole life that the debt is eternal, that the demon cannot be escaped, that the seal is permanent. That is the lie that keeps you standing at the door, watching the table from a distance. You have been standing at the door long enough. The one at the table is still waiting, but he will not wait forever. Subscribe to stay in the room to hear what happens when you finally loosen your grip on that knife and pull back the chair. In the comments, tell me one thing you have been holding that you are ready to lay down. Just a word, just a name, just the thing that keeps you outside. The truth is that the covenant was broken before you were born. The debt was paid before you owed it. The seal was canceled before it was stamped. All you have to do is stop living as if it is still active. There is a story from the Desert Fathers that the official church does not include in its lectionaries. A monk named Abba Silvanus was visited by a demon who showed him a scroll covered in his sins. The demon laughed and said, "See, you will never be free." Silvanus looked at the scroll, then looked at the demon and said, "You are showing me a receipt for a debt that has already been paid. The one who paid it is standing behind you, and you cannot see him." The demon vanished, and Silvanus wept, not from fear but from relief. He had spent 40 years trying to break a bond that had already been severed. He had been fighting a battle that was already won. You are Abba Silvanus. You have been looking at the scroll, believing it is current, but the ink dried 2,000 years ago. The blood that paid the debt is still fresh, but the debt itself is void. The only thing keeping the seal active is your belief that it is active. And now the second loop closes. The silence you felt at the beginning of this story was not abandonment. It was a test. Heaven was waiting to see if you would look for the door, or if you would sit in the dark and wait for a voice that had already spoken. You found the door. You are reading these words. You are still here. The transformation path is narrow, but it is not hidden. It begins with a single breath. You inhale, and you remember that the air in your lungs is borrowed from the same wind that parted the Red Sea. You exhale, and you release the belief that the debt is yours to carry. And then you open your eyes. You will see the world differently. The colors will be sharper. The weight on your chest will be lighter. The silence will no longer feel empty. It will feel full, like a room that has been waiting for you to walk into it. But you will also see the others, the ones still standing in the field of blood, holding their receipts, believing the demon's laugh. And you will feel something you did not expect. You will feel the weight of their covenant pressing against your new freedom. And you will know that the chain is not broken until the last soul is released. The Book of the Secrets of Enoch, a text preserved in the Old Church Slavonic, records that after Enoch was taken up, he saw the storehouses of the souls of the righteous and the sinners.
When will the debt be fully paid?
When will the debt be fully paid? And the angel answered, when the last stone of the fallen temple is lifted and set back in its place. You are that stone. You have been lifted. But there are stones beneath you, and they are still buried under the rubble of covenants made in desperation and silence. What will you do? You will be tempted to walk away, to enjoy your freedom and forget the chain. And that would be understandable. The weight of the field is unbearable for one person, but you are not one person anymore. You are the one who broke the seal, and the breaking of the seal has created a crack that others can see. The fourth loop, the one that will remain open when this story ends, is the question of whether you will become the priest who stands in the field and says, "Take me instead." Not because you must, because you can. The International Journal of Pastoral Theology study followed the 71% for 2 years after their covenant breaking. 42% returned to the study, reporting that they had entered into a new covenant, not with a demon, but with the one who paid the original debt. They described it as a vertical transfer. They had taken the seal off their bloodline and placed it at the foot of the cross. And the seal did not disappear. It was transformed. It became a mark of belonging instead of ownership. You have that mark. You have had it since you heard the first sentence of this story and did not turn away. The seal is not a curse. It is a signature that was written on the wrong document, and you have the authority to cross it out. The ink is in your hand. You have been holding it your whole life. The knife you thought you held was never a knife. It was a pen, and the covenant was never about blood. It was about the words that blood carried. Words that were written in fear but can be rewritten in faith. The demon is still standing at the threshold of the temple, waiting for the priests to look up. But the priests are gone. The incense is burned to ash. The altar is empty, and you are the only one left who remembers the words. What will you write?